UOB in Provo, Utah on BYU TV and BYU Radio for BYU Sports Nation. Jeremy Jordan, Jason Shepard. Time now to talk with one of the main voices in college football media. His name is Stewart Mandel, the editor-in-chief at The Athletic, anchoring the college football coverage. Stewart, welcome back to the program.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're excited and awaiting a starting quarterback for BYU football any day now as BYU prepares for Southern Illinois. But as we get ready for the season, what are you most looking forward to as we enter the 2024 college football year?
It's just such a fascinating season because everything's different. You know, whether you want to spotlight the 12-team playoff. I mean, when does a major sport ever triple the size of its postseason in 1 year? And then, of course, all the conference realignment, all these glamorous matchups we're going to have now in the Big Ten and the SEC between, brand name programs. I think it's going to feel a lot different. I think it's going to be very exciting. I'm sure it will not all go swimmingly. I'm sure there will be things people complain about, but it's fascinating.
Expectations are always interesting because, everyone's going to have, if you have a close tie, you're probably going to feel a little bit different. If someone's looking on the outside, it may vary. Expectations for BYU football are very low. Most of the sites have BYU winning about 4 games. Where do you fall? Do you think that's fair based off of what you know about the Cougars? And what's your opinion on expectations for BYU football this year?
So knowing I was coming on here today, I came armed with some stats. And they're not very flattering stats. I did not realize that BYU last year was 117th in offense, yards per game, and 109th in defense. When you see those stats, you're like, how did they even win 5 games? I knew it would be a rough transition anytime you moved in from, I know they weren't technically group of 5, but they were outside the power conferences and they moved into one. We saw that with Utah a dozen years ago. But that was obviously not an encouraging start. And then when you look toward this season, it's like, okay, what's going to be different? And maybe they get much better play at quarterback. I know they're excited about LJ Martin at running back. But I think realistically, improvement would be maybe they can win more than 4 games, obviously. But I don't think they're necessarily going to be dramatically better.
Yeah, the hope is they're at least bowl eligible. That's kind of the vibe around here, despite Vegas walking in saying, hey, 4 wins. And it's an interesting Big 12. 16 teams now, 4 in from the Pac-12. 4 were in last year, 3 from the AAC and BYU. So the Big 12, while you see a lot of programs that you're familiar with, it is crazy different this year. And Barry Trammell was on a couple days ago from Oklahoma saying, hey, it's like a totally different league. What's your perception of the new look Big 12?
It really hit home at Big 12 Media Day, walking into that stadium in Vegas and seeing the UCF mascot and the Arizona State mascot and any other combo like that. It does feel increasingly like just a mishmash of all these programs, assorted programs around the country. But that's no weirder than Stanford and Cal being in the ACC, SMU being in the ACC, 4 West Coast schools being in the Big Ten playing Minnesota and Maryland. It's par for the course now in college sports. But I do think it's going to be a very exciting conference, very competitive. Said it a million times. There's 6 to 8 teams. That would not surprise me if they won the conference this year. And that's a lot different than in the Big Ten where there's 2, right? So it should be fun.
Parity is king, but will there be multiple college football playoff bids, in your opinion, out of the Big 12?
It's definitely possible. One thing we won't know until we live through it is how the committee is going to compare. I mean, obviously, we know the champion gets in no matter what. If there's a second team and they're like a 10-2 team, but there's a 9-3 Michigan or 9-3 Tennessee, does the team with fewer losses automatically get the berth? Or will they say, yeah, Michigan had 2, they beat Oregon, they had a big win, and Kansas State didn't. We're just going to have to see. It'll be a big, fascinating part of the first year of the 12-team playoff.
Stewart, you mentioned just a second ago that, there's, 6 teams or so that you would not shock you if they were the team that won this thing. As we sit here today and we're talking, who are the 2 teams that right now you would expect to be in Dallas in the Big 12 championship game?
I do have Utah and Kansas State kind of 1A and everybody else 1B. I think having Cam Rising back, having Brant Keithy back, just all the injuries Utah suffered last year, they should be much better this year. And just, what you're going to get from them for the most part. K-State, I just think, has one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the country in Avery Johnson, who people are going to finally see, play a full season, hopefully, if he's healthy. So they're right in the mix as well. I think they'll be a great running team as well. They do have a lot of changeover on the offensive line that could trip them up. So that's who I have playing in the Big 12 title game. But if you told me, it's not Kansas State, it's Iowa State or Oklahoma State or whatnot, the only one I'd be surprised is if Utah is not in that game, because I do think, having recently been the two-time Pac-12 champion, having a guy like Cam Rising back, like they should make that game.
Yeah, and this is the program that, waits anxiously to see whether they make it or not. And BYU and Utah play again as conference foes, which will be really fun. Avery Johnson got the sunshine look from Remember the Titans, which will be great.
He does.
We'll talk Heisman odds with Avery and others coming up in a minute. This 12-team playoff is going to be interesting. As you mentioned, the conference champions are the top 4 seeds. So it's pretty interesting because you could have the top 4 seeds not be the top 4 teams per se if there are upsets in the college football playoff. What do you make of 12 teams and the setup as it is?
I think that's going to be the biggest adjustment because college football has always been straight up top 4 teams. Now, what they're doing in rewarding the conference champs is not that different than what we do, for instance, in the NFL. Like if you could go 7-9, but if you win your division, you're going to be in the playoffs. And people just kind of accept that because that's how it's always been in the NFL. But it's going to be a big change the first time, the number 11 team is the ACC champion and is getting a number 4 seed in a first round bye. And, Georgia is 12-1 and lost by a field goal in the SEC championship game, and they're not getting the first round bye. That just goes so against the way the sport and determining the national champion has always been.
Stewart, you're a perfect person to ask this. I mean, and I know that it's probably not easy to give a direct answer to this because we just don't know, but you're so plugged in. I'm curious your take on this. And we've talked about so much about expansion, and every year we're talking about it. We get to this point, and it's like, okay, well, maybe we're going to get a little bit of a breather. And then there are comments that come out recently that, maybe the next big thing or whatever the next big thing is 2 to 4 years away. And then there's been pushback to that saying, no, all these deals go to 2030, 2031. When whatever happens, do you think it's sooner or later than, say, the next 4 or 5 years?
Well, it is true that most of these conference deals are now locked up for a while, but what kind of caught me by surprise last go around was Oklahoma and Texas didn't wait for the Big 12 deal to come up. They made their move 4 years in advance and then figured out the details of how to get out later. So if there's, even if a contract goes through 2031, that doesn't mean something doesn't happen, in 2027. We should be good for a couple of years unless, of course, Florida State and Clemson figure out a way to get out of the ACC, and then all bets are off.
Then the Big 12 comes knocking. They may have been knocking already. Do you think that that football will separate completely out of the NCAA independent of TV contracts, like they can just keep those and move themselves, or would that be attached somehow to the NCAA or no?
Well, the iteration that hasn't come yet that I think is some sort of separation of football from the others, but it's difficult because, like we just talked about, all these conferences deals come up at a different time. The ACC is locked in till 2036. The SEC is till 2034. But I also think that this might be the last era of conferences in kind of the traditional way we think about them. At some point, I mean, everything has been about consolidation and getting all the as many big brands as you can into one TV deal. So the next logical thing would be cut out the bottom half of the SEC, cut out the bottom of the Big Ten, just pool all the biggest TV brands into, the richest possible TV contract you can think of. And I think that day will come. I just don't know when. It just, it's not as easy as maybe some, it's easy for me to write an article, penciling, here's what a 32-team Super League would look like, but I'm not the one who has to get lawyers and figure out how to break contracts and whatnot.
Do you think that would be embraced nationally? Because in Europe, that was going to happen, right? You bring in, hey, we'll get Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Juventus. We'll all just play in our own league. They announced they were going to do that, and then 2 days later or whatever, they're like, no. Do you think that in America that would fly in college football?
The biggest difference, right, and I've thought about this a lot, is we saw you're talking about the soccer Super League.
Yes.
The reason that got thwarted so quickly is that the fans of the teams that would have benefited went to bat for the fans of the teams that would have been, put out to pasture. And we don't see that in college realignment. It's like, Oklahoma's like, oh, there's a big paycheck over in the SEC. Bye-bye, Oklahoma State. The people just, it's cutthroat, it's capitalistic, right? So to answer your question, I mean, it would be very controversial and a lot of people would be upset about it. But at least to this point in college sports, that has not stopped people from making these kind of Machiavellian moves.
We felt that in 2010 with the separation of perceived brothers BYU and Utah. It got a little crazy.
Yeah, we're willing to like upend 100 years of rivalries, right, for a paycheck. That is a lot different than what happened in Europe.
You know, Stewart, I think our fans are curious because until it happens, I think there will always be some uneasiness as to who's involved and who's not. In your opinion, with what BYU has done and the program that it is and the history that it has, do you think when this happens that BYU will be included in the teams that, I guess, that will be the haves versus the have-nots?
Yeah, I think they're right on the bubble, I guess. It depends on how many teams are going into this pool. But I always said during that period where they were an independent that they were a Power 5 team without the Power 5 designation in terms of not like necessarily on the field, but they have a national title. They had a Heisman Trophy winner. They play in a 64,000 seat stadium. In many ways, they were more Power 5 than the lower half of the Power 5, right? Where you have a lot of teams that don't have that rabid a fan base and don't have that kind of following. So I think they'd be very attractive for the very reason that ESPN had to deal with them when they were independent. They bring eyeballs. It just depends like how exclusive are we talking about if and when that day comes.
Yeah, what's that number? Because if it's too small, it's going to be hard for a lot of programs that you've heard of, right, that may or may not get in. Whenever there's been inclusion from someone outside to then inside in power football, it felt like there was some kind of validating season recent to that. Does BYU football need some kind of validating season to be in the mix? Should a move happen in the next couple of years?
I think they need to show that they can compete at a high level in a power conference, which, isn't going to happen overnight. I mean, I just keep pointing to their rival in Utah. And when they first got to the Pac, I mean, they were, they had that kind of two of those kind of seasons you talked about in the Mountain West, and they got to the big Pac-12 and they struggled those first couple of years, but eventually they put it together and won conference championships. So even if BYU is bad again this year, I mean, they can't stay bad for too long because there is a huge recency bias to realignment. I don't think there's any question about that. Look at the programs that moved up to the Big 12 in this, the group of 5 programs that moved up, Cincinnati, UCF. These are programs that had their moment on the national stage.
Stewart, we appreciate the time as always. Always great insight, and we recommend everyone go to The Athletic, subscribe, and check it out. It's great stuff. Thanks, Stewart.
Thanks, Stewart.
Thank you.
Stewart Mandel.